So as you peruse 1 through 10, you'll notice there are fewer undefeated teams in the 1 through 5 than there are 6 through 10. The good news for Cincinnati is that's the highest team ever outside the Power 5 to be ranked as high as 6. The bad news for them is they're behind Ohio State, who it was described as not having a signature win. Rece Davis, I am so confused because I was so prepared to be outraged that Ohio State was ahead of Oregon that I was pleasantly surprised that the Ducks, who won head-to-head in Columbus, are ahead of Ohio State. And yet I still find myself awfully confused about a lot. Do you share my befuddlement?
I don't know if I share complete befuddlement. I'll tell you the thing that surprised me the most, Scott, was that Alabama at number 2. Now, I don't want to dwell on that because it really is going to work itself out. If they win the rest of their games, they're in. If they lose one to Georgia or before, they're not going. So that's not as big a deal. That part surprised me. But they were consistent in this regard. You go through the rankings, and I don't think I've overlooked one, but head-to-head carried the day, and maybe it was just one spot, but virtually throughout the top 25.
But it's interesting. You think Bama, if they get to Atlanta and they were to lose, you got 1-2, if it's close, I feel like you said even a 2. You think 2-loss Alabama will be excluded from the 4?
I think so. I don't think they can make it with 2 losses unless, and we've seen a lot of this year, Scott, if everybody starts losing around them, then maybe there'll be something different. But it would surprise me very much if a 2-loss Alabama makes it. I think they have to win the rest of their games to make it. So that's why I'm not too up in arms about where they're ranked right now.
Fair enough. And I feel like some of it's clever. Look, you can put Michigan State at 3 off that big win over Michigan because you know that they have to play Ohio State, which becomes, in a sense, an eliminator of sorts, I suppose. But I'm interested in what did you make of the comment that Ohio State doesn't have a signature win, yet they're ahead of Cincinnati?
I think probably their overall strength of schedule is better. I have Cincinnati ranked ahead of them in my AP ballot. In fact, I have Cincinnati number 2. But I think that's part of it and part of it is the way Cincinnati has looked the last 2 weeks. Cincinnati must look the part. And they have not looked the part in the last 2 weeks. And I think it's also not a good omen for them that the 2 primary challengers in their conference aren't ranked right now. And so I would agree with you that could be a little bit confusing that Ohio State doesn't have a signature win. But, I do think that, Cincinnati, the thing that's working against them is that they just haven't looked the part the last 2 games.
And I think it hurts them that the best win they can have is behind them, Notre Dame, and you see what it was worth, and it wasn't worth a lot. I don't want to talk out of both sides of my mouth, but I would agree you need to look the part, and Ohio State has, and if you do the old who'd be favored bit, Ohio State would be favored by a significant margin against Cincinnati. Then again, they were favored significantly over Oregon, and Oregon won that game. Oklahoma's 8. Now, I get it. They've had some results where, the Texas game was insanity, as you guys well know, and they struggle with Kansas, and you can't struggle with Kansas. But Rece, they haven't lost, and there they sit at 8. That seems pretty low for OU to be ranked initially. What do you make of that?
I agree, and I think it is all about just what you said, the fact that they have pulled games out of the fire, the fact that even though they had a decent lead on Tulane early, and Tulane had a starting quarterback and all of that, they've played a whole bunch of close games, and they've been very fortunate up to this point. But with a near record number of upsets and ranked teams losing to unranked opponents and not the clear delineation and big margin of difference between the elite teams that we've seen in years past and the rest of the field, I think this is a year where it merits rewarding keeping that 0 in the loss column. Now, it doesn't have to be the be-all, end-all, but if it's close, that should carry the day in my judgment.
Final overarching thought. You've shared with me what was the most surprising. Is there any sort of headline to this night moving forward? These are just the first rankings, but a final sort of overarching thought about the numbers, the teams, anything you would like to say?
At least for right now, is that head-to-head really matters. But my question is, will it continue to do so? Oregon has a bad loss on its resume, and they have had other games where they were fortunate to come out of it. So I test how you play. Will head-to-head continue to carry the day as we move down the rest of the season through the rankings?
Well said, Rece. I wonder if it's not something just to appease. Stanford Steve and I were preemptively irate And you appease the idiots like us for now, but where are we when push comes to shove in the end and you're trying to identify the 4 best teams? Man, this is so much fun to talk about, isn't it? We're lucky enough to get to do this, Rece. Appreciate your time as always. Look forward to doing it again soon.
All right, Scotty.
Thanks, man.
You bet, buddy.
So everyone's got the SEC championship game circled on the calendars. You take a look at the toughest regular season game left for each of the initial top 6. Michigan State, Oregon both have games where they'll be an FPI underdog, which keeps the door wide open for the teams who are behind them. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.